Hi! When we paint natural landscapes, we mix the colors so that their color is muted. We don't apply the paint directly from the tube. We tone down the pure color. So I quickly came to the conclusion that I no longer wanted bright and above all toxic paints, such as cadmium paints or toxic magenta paints or alizarin red, and replaced some of my paints with largely non-toxic ones. After all, I have to wash out my brushes every time after painting, or I have to be careful not to leave any blobs that my cat can step into. I've been of this opinion for a long time to save the environment and have therefore switched to using less toxic pigments and paints. Some work very well, others not so well, but I'm constantly looking for new exciting pigments and mix my own paints. There are some colors I actually can't do without, such as turquoise, which often contains a poisonous malachite or cobalt. But this pigment can also be replaced with a spinel. Spinels are the keyword. These are minerals. They are magnesium aluminates, which form different color variants with foreign additions of iron, chromium, zinc, cobalt or manganese. These are, above all, chemically resistant, that means non-reactive, and light-fast minerals. For example, I like to use the spinel pigments from the three well-known German paint suppliers. Many people think that in order to produce paints, you first have to grind the pigments. From decades of practice with pigments, I know that the pigments available on the German market are very fine. The fineness of pigments also determines the yield and therefore the color strength. I also bought pigments from a well-known shop in Florence because I was primarily looking for green earth pigments. Unfortunately, these pigments are very coarse and you would definitely have to grind them. However, I was very satisfied with the color variants. Every country has its pigment suppliers. You don't have to buy the pigments from Germany. I must point out that all pigments are toxic, for example when inhaled, or they still contain allergens. Earth pigments also contain toxic trace elements. I'm also concerned about protecting the environment and wastewater and of course my cat. Making your own watercolor paints isn't much of a rocket science and is even fun. Just try it. First dissolve 1 part gamma-arabic powder in 2 parts distilled water. A small amount is enough for now. You can use a shot glass as a measuring tool. So put a half shot glass of Arabic gum powder and 1 shot glass water in a clean jam jar. Then take a small pot and heat some water. It shouldn't boil. If you want to use a thermometer, it should be below 60 degrees Celsius. 40 degrees is even better. Stir this mixture until everything is dissolved. You can also temporarily remove the mixture from the pot and simply let it steep. At the end, it should be a clear liquid. We add about 1 smooth teaspoon of honey to this. It should be a small amount of liquid honey. This affects the resolubility of the dried paint. Now let's take a small mortar. I got my mortar from the pharmacy and it was a free gift. We take about a teaspoon of gamma rubic and gradually mix it with the pigment. We take as much pigment until the pastels stand upright. Then we refill the finished paint. Not every pigment reacts the same way. Some require more fluids. I noticed this, for example, with yellow ochre and with earth pigments in general. The pastel does not always have to stand upright in the paint. With earth pigments, I would make the paint a little more liquid. Synthetic organic pigments must be made liquid. In the beginning of this video I showed you a few pictures that I painted with paints I made myself. On the subject of paint production, I would like to say in advance that I am planning more videos. I have already made pastels myself. These are just as easy to make as the watercolors. The general rule when producing paint is you determine the amount of pigment yourself and thus also the color strength. And it saves you a lot of money. Here I use the branded pastel sticks for comparison, and I have to say my pastel sticks seem to be soft as well, or even softer. I also plan to produce oil wax crayons. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date. Bye!